o'clock. We'll call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Vallecitos Water District on Tuesday, December 8th. And we have some special guests in the audience and a special presentation by Troop 1215. And Chris, did you want to introduce them before they say the pledge?
Sure. Ladies, we're going to have a pledge of allegiance. We always start off with that. So can you ladies get up and lead us in the pledge of allegiance? What do we say? Do you say it at school? Does somebody know how? You're it.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job.
Good job. President Soul, can we get a couple photos?
Sure.
Would you be up for that?
I would love to.
Okay,
Maybe
super.
the whole board can come down and we can take a couple
That
of
would be
shots.
great. Okay, ladies, would you like to take a few photos with you? Would that be all right with you? Yes. Right up in here. You want to see in the background? Short ones in the front.
I think that would be about all of them.
I think that's next to you. Ladies in shoulder to shoulder.
This is from some lady from the Children's Museum.
Yeah, that must have been the night you were.
Because I said fun.
You think she's seen that photo?
Can we see this one here?
No, Sophia, come on. Eva, Ivy and Sophia switch.
There you go. There we go.
So Ivy and Sophia behind Sophia.
Man, I didn't remember their names.
How old are your kids?
13. My son's 13. My niece is 20.
10 years, man.
10 years, right?
Maybe
I'll
11,
be
12 years, you'll be.
There you
Big grandpa, it's great.
go.
I wish.
It's,
Shoulder to shoulder, and then.
I mean, great.
I'm waiting for that, this one, I'm
Said
waiting for
that-
that.
remember
Any
you
minute.
said
Blake probably told me he
Literally
might
any
show
minute.
up, yeah.
Get in the window.
Same door or same.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Everybody got it?
You're ready, there we go, much better.
He's I can't help it, but he's a CPA, and so he went to work.
Okay, super.
They're gonna call him in soon.
You can go have
He
some
went to
more
work,
fun
he used to
with
work
your
for a
badges now, 'cause the rest of the meeting, I'm not sure you'd be so thrilled with it. They sure do, yeah.
McGaudry,
I'm glad you informed me. Glad you informed me.
and Chris McGaudry, and then he got, last year he got a job at, he used to be the auditor for Hunter
Oh, wow.
and Industries, and so I was.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. That's what happened, you know, that's how you, that's what happened. So typical, like, oh,
What grade did you
get
teach?
somebody's stuff.
Kinder first and second.
Is that what they are?
That's Daisy's, they're,
I'm gonna move up here. so-
Kinder mostly. Yeah. I
Makes
taught
sense.
Daisy
It's
to
no
Girl
reason-
Scouts.
Kansas now, but it's-
Thank you, Chris. That was nice.
Thanks, Chris. He's not working downtown.
Okay, I was trying to go slow, so Director Martin can join us, but he'll join us when he gets there. So, can we do a roll call, Diane?
Director Ellerford,
Here.
Here?
Director Hernandez,
Here.
Director Martin, Director Canella.
Here. Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, well, here we go with another brief little break and special presentation. Director Evans.
Pardon?
You come over here for a second.
Oh,
In fact, we
yes.
can have the whole board come up, but as it is customary, we want to present you with a thank you for your service as president last year. And I'm about to find out how hard that job is, and I know that we all appreciate everything that you have done, and we wanted to present you with this photo book, and we could get a group picture, and Maybe if we can get some, you want staff in here as well, or?
I would love staff with me.
One-
And
one-
so
one
you
with-
can-
Which one
we
of
can
us?
just
One with
do
the board
this
and then-
one,
Can we move the
then-
chair?
Yeah.
I'd like
Sure.
it kind of high.
We're just
Vocal
taking, we're just
hygiene.
taking pictures today, yeah. Hold on.
Oh dear, what does he need to do?
We ready? Okay, let's add a few more.
Oh, can I have all of you? Come on, Jeff.
Nobody wants to do it. Why don't we go down there?
Let's go down there.
Okay, I got that.
You too. You have to be in it.
Gotta have James up here, because we, you know, always the perfect. Come on, everybody. Come on, guys, come on, this is.
Line her up. You know,
I'm in the short side, so I gotta be in that.
where's the window? And you need to get in the window.
Other side.
Balance out. There we go. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, Tom, you gotta slide over.
Hold it down.
On that side. Oh, yeah. Well, you don't follow directions either.
Six-year-old can live there.
Will you take the credit for Christmas dinner? I want, no, you're fine, my bad. You guys can all be in it? Yeah. Oh, wait, we're not.
Uh-oh.
Want to show it to the audience, like, yeah.
Oh, since you're getting a cigar.
Thanks, Chris. Good job, man.
Well, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity, and a special thank you, gentlemen, for watching me stumble through the process. I did my very best on your behalf, Mike, to show you what not to do. And I hope you listened well. Oh, I'm glad Dr. Martin's here to say thank you to him too. And I want to say to all of you, it was a pleasure. I hope I get to do it again, but next time I'll probably have to wear a tiara. Thank you so much. I'm excited. Do I have to, can I leave to read this?
What?
Can I leave to read?
No, just
Yeah.
pictures. Just pictures.
Easy reading.
Easy reading.
And Director Evans, as I said before, thank you for a wonderful 2015. And although I have chaired different boards over the years, this was my first time chairing a water board. So everything I know about chairing a water district board is from Director Martin and yourself. So if you don't like what I do, you have
your
nobody to
fault.
blame but yourself.
No problem. No problem.
Okay, and glad you could join us, Director Martin.
I'm glad I could be here, sorry I'm late.
I'm going to hand out,
Need to adopt the agenda?
oh, can I thought we did.
We did.
Did you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand out the board appointments, which is the next item on the agenda here, just so anybody have any questions on the group, write that down. And I also have an updated board of directors contact list. I think I passed it out.
Oh,
here
good.
Yeah.
In reverse, but just to kind of make this easy for everybody, as you review it, I left everything exactly as it was last year. And so there's been no changes. I'll entertain any questions or a motion to approve as it was presented.
Move to approve as presented.
Second?
I
Okay,
did.
we have-
I did have one little comment I discovered myself. Actually, and it doesn't bother me at all, but I do want to point out that in our policy, I believe two of members can't be on the same, on committees together. So I just want you to know I've read my policy and I want to know, I indeed had an error.
It is allowed if it's approved by the board.
Sure.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
okay.
why we'll take it
Wanna
to the
point
board
that
here,
out,
so the
'cause I'm
board-
feeling guilty.
Once the board approves, it's okay.
Super,
Yep,
don't
and,
want to change it.
General Manager Lamb and I did talk about that this morning as well. So we are aware of it, and unless there's any concerns with that, because that's how it was last year as well. We have a motion and a second. Do we need a roll call for this?
No,
Or-
just all-
Okay.
all in favor.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Moving along to oral communications. I don't see anybody out there except for our team. So
Uh-oh,
that's good.
check the hospitals.
Okay, do I need to actually read this, Dennis?
Notice to the public?
Yeah.
I'll just give the first line.
Just all matters listed under the consent calendar will be voted upon by one motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Move to approve the consent calendar?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving right on to 3.1. Chris, you want to give us a drought update, please?
Certainly. So I'm giving a drought update, and this is really for the month of October, because we're a little behind, because it wasn't on the last one. So, but the data really hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot. So we've been in the drought level 2 since August 6th of 2014. In your packet on that first page, a lot of information about the trees and what the drought is doing to the trees. I can remember recently driving along the Sunrise Highway and seeing all the dead trees from the bark beetles. And the stats from the U.S. Forest Service show that 22 million trees damaged within the state of California. And that's a lot of tinder, it causes fire hazards, really, really a dangerous situation. The good news is we have published as the district information to our customers about taking care of their trees in spite of the drought. So something that we've been pushing. On page 27 of your packet, kind of the production consumption patterns, we were down 25% from October of 2014 and 22.89 from October of 2013. So October was really very warm, very challenging to get the water savings, but still looking good and right in the pipe where we want to be for our water savings figures. The numbers I saw from Sean for November were 24.8% the last time I saw it. And then he also does a reading into December, and that one was showing we were at 23.5%. So still good savings, right around that 24% reduction. The one thing I'll caveat that is it'll get a little harder as we get into these winter months where people don't irrigate so much and we don't have that easy savings coming from just the irrigation savings. It starts to be more internal consumption within the household that needs to go down. So good for us to get these nice savings figures at the beginning of the process to carry us through the winter months. The residential gallons per capita per day figures, nice figures here, 83.4 gallons in for 2015, and then back in 2014, 107. So our customers, kind of on a per capita basis, down 25 gallons per day, which is a nice chunk right there. On your next page, on 29, with the drought phone calls, you can see how it's just crashing. We had almost 350 calls when it was May, June, and what was it most recently, like 43 drought calls. Now, I can remember there was times when my phone was ringing like crazy, and now it's kind of few and far between to get a drought call. So we're going to be repackaging, remessaging. We want to talk to our customers about El Nino, about saving that water, about efforts to catch that water. So kind of a little shift in our messaging to our customers. And then the fiscal impacts, 18.1% less than budgeted were the sales. So that leads to an unfavorable budget variance of 0.2 million in net operating income. So good thing we planned for it. A lot of agencies don't, but you know, it does impact us. So I'll entertain questions if you have any.
On Facebook, I've seen a couple of Kim from Liebenhain and Kathleen from
was up there.
Helix.
Yeah, she was
Went
up
up to Sacramento.
Mhm.
Is that gonna be part of your report at the end?
there. Yeah,
or-
I'll touch on it briefly. There's
Yeah.
nothing's come out of the state yet, obviously, but they
Was
were up
it-
there yesterday.
Well, I'll wait till the report.
Yeah, I'll touch on it briefly.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Chris.
Super.
That was for information only, so we'll move on to item 3.2, award of the lift station number 1 Waterman valves replacement project.
Thank you, President Snell, members of the board. This is the Waterman valves, which are basically two sewer valves. They're not like typical valves that you see in a water pipe that kind of slide up and down. These valves are over by lift station 1, which is kind of across the street from the high school, up kind of closer to the, I believe, the Arby's over there, off of San Marcos Boulevard. They've been in the ground for, I believe, going up over 25 years, and they've long
86.
useful life. And so it's scheduled this year was for replacement of these valves. There's a 30 and 36-inch valves. On November 10th, the district received 3 bids. The lowest, most responsible bidder was Adam Engineering Incorporated. We've evaluated staff and council and determined they were the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. With that, if there's unless there's any other questions, staff recommends award of construction contract to Adam Engineering Construction, Inc., in the amount of $107,398 for the valve replacements of the lift station 1.
I do just have a question on the diagram, so I understand what's going on. Here's, we have 2 lines coming down San Marcos Boulevard, and one coming from the north into this same valve area. Is that what I'm reading?
Mhm.
Yes.
And then the lowest one, the one further south, cuts in and then goes into the valve area, and then comes out and continues, and then one of them, or the one that comes from the north, comes into the valve area, goes north, then around and down, and then somewhere in there it comes together, and 4 of them go west.
Yeah, the ones, and if you don't mind, I'll just go over the order. Everything is essentially flowing from east to the west.
Right.
And this is the lift station, so it goes into the lift station, this is what's pumped out.
Yes.
These are pump lines.
I see.
This is the gravity line that goes straight to our outfall. And it goes into the pump station, whatever we don't pump comes back down that same line.
Uh-huh.
This one comes down to Las Cosas, and these come down to Boulevard, and one of these actually goes across the street to where the old Discovery sewer used to be.
But all 4 of those go right to Encina?
No, this one is actually coming back this way,
Oh,
and this is the one that goes to Encina. That's our big outfall line. This is really the start of our outfall.
so the second one down, that one is going back and then up and around and out.
Yeah, I tried putting arrows on it, but there was a lot of arrows.
The two bottom ones direct our to the force mains that we send the sewage to Meadowlark.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, there's some education. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Waterman valve named because of the guy that came up with it, Waterman?
I'm not too sure. That's the manufacturer is the Waterman. I don't know if the person's name was Waterman, but it's a style. It's a sluice gate really, and it's made by Waterman, so it slides up and down. Because if you can imagine, this is a vault. It's open. It's not a closed pipeline, so it just slides up and slides down. So it's open to the atmosphere and it's open to sewer everywhere else.
And they just wear out over time. This is a lot of time.
Yeah, and there's maintenance on them, but to get how many years? was it?
86, went in 86.
So to get this much life on it, that means there's a lot of maintenance done over the years.
And it goes up and down because?
If we could divert flow to the lift station, or we could send flow directly to the outfall.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Director Ellis?
Yeah, so during the replacement, you're gonna bypass,
So we'll put
Flow
a
on
plug,
each one.
we'll put a plug on the downstream side of the vault, and obviously chain it to the vault, and then we'll bypass either into the lift station or bypass around the lift station.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Have a real simple one.
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you. We've used this Adam Engineering before, or is this a new company?
Yeah, the Adam Engineering actually was the lowest responsible bidder for a lift station upgrade. And that's probably why he's also the lowest bidder on this job, since he's already mobilized on site and he didn't have as much cost in it as what we suspect.
Okay, I thought it was familiar, but it didn't look familiar. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 3.3. This is a resolution for the proposed 2016 investment policy. And Tom, you want to take us away?
Yes, thank you. On page 34 of your board packet, there was a memo addressing the investment policy each year. We bring it forward to the board for approval. This time, there's no changes. Staff looks at guidance from California Municipal Treasurers Association. They put out different samples of investment policies and alert you to any changes in the code or anything like that. But since there was none, we're just asking the board to affirm the existing policy. We'll carry that into 2016 as well.
Okay.
So, glad to entertain any questions.
Move for approval.
A motion?
Second?
Motion and a second, and since we're not changing anything, we'll just go ahead and, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
3.4, resolution for district credit card policy update.
Yes, on page 40 of your board packet, you have a memo that describes what our credit card policy is. We take it at least once a year to you, but we have a change, decentralizing some of the purchasing and getting purchase authorization to our O&M department. So that's the only change you see highlighted in the resolution, other than some titles of employees that have changed. That's on page 42 onto 43. Those are the only changes in there. So everything else stayed the same. So I'm glad to entertain questions. But
I had one quick question. Would this be the policy that will this policy change again if we move forward with the new credit cards that we were
Yeah.
talking about during the finance meetings?
And I can show you exactly. On the bottom of page 42, all it is that first bank card, that verbiage in the middle column that says first bank card
Something else.
would be replaced with the card that we actually go with, the Cal card. But everything else would stay the
section?
same.
I'm on 42, but what section is that in?
Section 4, right on the bottom. Just that little graphic would change.
I see.
Yeah, and we're going through that right now, and our finance manager will be presenting to our general manager, Lamb, and myself on the administration and all the changes that would have to be made. But we already have all that information, so we may be coming to you with it again, but that's okay. You know,
Okay.
we say at least once a year because there are these changes, so.
And this actually also now mimics the purchasing policy that you recently
Okay.
approved.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Since there are some minor changes to the resolution, can we do a roll call, please?
Yes, this is resolution 1493. Director Elazar?
Yes.
Director Evans?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Yes.
Director Martin?
Yes.
Director Snell?
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, 3.5, surplus personal property listing. Tom?
On page 47, the very last page of your board packet, is a short memo on surplus property. We have an ordinance in practice that we surplus property and list it for sale. When the value of a piece of property is over $1,000, we're required to bring it to the board for approval. We have two items, as you can see on this memo: a generator, and we're estimating the value at $18,000, and the old phone system at $1,800. Since both of those items are over $1,000, we're bringing it to the board to request approval to list those as surplus and sell.
Director Hernandez?
What is the process from here, relative, you put this on Craigslist, and hope somebody shows up? What do you do after?
Yeah.
How do you sell it?
Yeah, exactly. We estimate a value. I don't know, were we using Craigslist, do you know?
No, there's a government surplus website that we posted on, that's for government agencies to sell surplus property. Then they go through a bidding process. We set a minimum, sometimes we get we put things on there that are $300 and $400, and we might get 50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but so it goes through a government website that's advertised.
And are government entities the only ones that access that website?
No,
Anyone
anybody
access
can
it?
access, anybody can access it.
Thank you very much.
I have a remark question. Do we still have a piece of equipment, an old Jeep that we used to use in parades?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And why do we keep that? What's the benefit?
It's the legacy of the district.
Isn't that the one we
Very
used for
first vehicle we
parade?
bought.
We used to, we don't anymore.
Yeah, very first vehicle we bought. Yeah, it's just a legacy, first thing we did.
What year is it?
1949? 1949 Willys. It's actually a Willys,
Where's it kept?
out in the garage underneath the tarp.
Does it run?
Yeah, we had it rebuilt, we had it repainted, body work done.
So there was a Christmas parade that just this weekend. Did we not participate for any reason? in
Now,
particular
the
anymore, or-
board took us out of the Christmas parade 3 years ago.
Okay.
Stop them, but.
Any background on that, or just?
The discussion back then, we brought to the board the cost of these events, generally the different things that we had, and there were 3 or 4 events that at that point the board said, we're not getting our money for our value for our money, don't do those anymore.
Any other questions about the surplus property? Okay, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, moving along.
Okay, Tom, we're not gonna take less than 17 minutes for that.
It'll actually probably be sold out of state, if not out of country.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't meet any of the APCD rules for use. That's why we have to get rid of
My
it.
backyard.
You got a bunker back there?
That concludes the action items, so we'll move on to reports. Mr. Lamb?
I'll have my part, then I'll actually have Ed get up and brief you on the events of today that took place. He can bring you up to speed on that. To go back to what Director Hernandez was talking about, as you're aware, the board, it's in Chris's memo, when the regional board adopted, State Water Resources Control Board adopted the emergency regulations, they were a shotgun approach. Everybody cuts back to get an equivalent of 25% statewide. Some had only 10%, some had 40%. They did not take into account local supply development. They didn't take into account anything you may have already done. They didn't take into account anything. So you've seen the presentations, and the issue for San Diego that sent out such a weird message is that we're at 99% of our normal water supply. Yet we have to cut back 24%, and as Chris said, we've averaged close to 29%, right at 30%. So we've done a good job. Yesterday, up in Sacramento, the regional board, the state board, had open hearings on the fact that the governor extended the rule all the way through the rainy season, and it's based upon rain through December. Well, again, that's great if you're in Northern California. San Diego region, LA, doesn't start getting your water until December, January. So it's like the rule's gonna be put into effect because we didn't get rain. Anyway, what we're afraid of is they're just going to extend it unilaterally and continue doing that. So the hearings up there right now are to give them some feedback, and supposedly they say they're receptive to listening to people that have developed local supplies, i.e. the billion-dollar building over on the coast that we're all going to see on Monday. Everybody sent letters up saying you need to take this into consideration, you need to do this, you need to do that. So there was a good representation up there. When you saw Kim speaking, Kim was addressing a separate proposal that quite a few of us signed a letter. I can't remember if you were all on the board when we adopted the 20 by 2020 rules.
That was 2009.
That was 2009. Okay, when we adopted the 20 by 2020 rules under Governor Schwarzenegger, you had to require 20% less by 2020 than you were currently using, I think, 2007 or 2008. That allowed, that procedure allowed 3 agencies, or 4, or more, to form a separate group within the 20 by 2020. And what it said was, as a collective group, you still want to get 20% individually if you can, but if you can't, if you collectively save more than the 20% between all of you. Let's say we save 30, Kim's, Olevenhagen saved 27, but poor Santa Fe, who can barely get down to saving 5, they couldn't get there. It allows us to aggregate our conservation together to help get through the season to where they can continue working at it. We've suggested that they continue to allow that kind of an approach under these temporary rules. So we've actually suggested that's what Kim was addressing. What Kathleen was predominantly addressing was the fact that there was no equality given to the fact that San Diego has spent $4 billion since 1993, since the drought back then when they said never again. That's what Kathleen was talking about. The Mark Weston, the chair of the Water Authority, was there speaking to that. I think there were about 7 or 8 people from San Diego up there. So that's what you saw Kathleen's pictures on Facebook. She was talking about the overall San Diego supply. Kim was specifically addressing the joint thing that they should allow, approach like that. And then we're just basically saying you need to give us credit. So if we have to cut back 20%, well, if we've developed 30%, take our 30% off the top, take 20% of the remainder, that's what we have to cut back. So the net might be 10%. That's what we're trying to get across, is you have to give us credit. You may have heard Alan, the GM from Padre Dam. He spoke at the Aqua Conference when he was on that panel, and he's explaining, I can't remember how much the money was, let's say, why am I gonna spend $68 million more to develop this water supply when I get no credit? So there were some good examples given, but that's what they're up there addressing today.
And so, what if all this falls on deaf ears? And come whenever they're gonna relook at this, April or March or whenever, they go, yeah, we heard you, but, yeah.
Well, that was a concern, and I think you've probably heard me say here over the last 2 years. Once the governor took his emergency regulations and moved the water resources and that component under the State Water Resources Control Board,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people figured out what was gonna happen. They're a regulatory bunch. They're an enforcement organization. They make rules and they enforce them. Where it used to be was more of, let's work it out, let's see what we can do, how do we get there? They didn't have the teeth that this organization has. You saw, they passed rules in 10 days.
Yeah.
And implement them. So if we get to the end of the year and they have chosen to say, okay, we're only gonna give you 20% credit for what you've done, we'll have to deal with it. We're hoping we can get a start during the temporary regulations to give us some acknowledgement and then keep working towards the long term. We just don't know where it's going. Felicia Marcus seems to be willing to listen, but there again, she works for somebody else.
Right.
So.
And we have no other recall other than storming the Capitol.
That's it. It'd be a legal recourse to lawsuits. That's the thing that surprised me, is there hasn't been a mass filing of lawsuits yet.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling as we get to this rainy season, you're going to.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of rain, you may have seen the flyer that came out, the initial allocation on the state water project is 10%. That's still, again, at the 3rd lowest it's ever been. We came out 5% last year and 0 the year before. Whether or not it'll go up, we don't know. You've all heard the stories on the atmospheric rivers. There's one actually hitting Washington or Oregon right now. We're expecting to get another 7 to 12 inches. But again, it's way up there. Kind of coming into the northern part of the state, but it's not coming down yet. So who knows? So anyway, our initial allocation for the year is 10%. So we'll see where we go from there. It can go down if we don't get a wet winter, nothing, or it can go up if we get a wet winter. Other than that, I'll have some comments for closed session unless there's any questions.
Did you want Tom to give the update about today?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
Ed?
sorry, thank you. I knew there was something else. I knew there was something else that happened today.
Tom was
Yeah.
tasked with keeping track of the costs, so we want to hear from him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. As you know, we had a little excitement over in the city of Carlsbad, Melrose, near Poinsettia, with a sewer spill that we never anticipated a sewer spill, obviously, but this was a construction project where we're tying in the new solids main into our 16-inch gravity, which then goes into the outfall of the 24-inch siphon. There's all kinds of pipes over there going every which way. 8 o'clock this morning, the contractor cut into the pipe. It was dry, as expected, and about 20 minutes later, sewage just decided to start flowing out of it. We're still kind of gathering information to find out why this occurred. It wasn't expected. We have some theories, but nothing's been proven out yet. something to do with the siphon. It was seemed to be kind of burping and then flowing and then burping when it really should have just been flowing at a lower level at that point. So we'll look into that. We'll find out exactly what happened. But we scrambled crews out there. We had our sewer crew out doing smoke testing. So this was really, we were getting ready to do our emergency operating center drill for El Nino. In fact, we'd already opened the EOC and immediately closed it and pretty much opened an EOC out in the field. I took over as incident commander out on site. City of Carlsbad, definitely want to publicly thank them as well as City of Vista. They responded to assist. We had our own Vector trucks out there. We had two large pumping trucks from Diamond that responded immediately, and then we were able to get Atlas pumping out there with about 4 of their trucks. So around 9 o'clock, the pumper trucks were pulling down the amount of sewage coming out of the hole in the pipe, which again was purposely cut. This was not an accident as far as the hole in the pipe. It was an accident with the sewer spilling. And at 10:20, we officially stopped any flow going to the creek. So it took us about 2 hours to get Vector trucks from 3 different agencies out there, as well as large pumper trucks. Everybody working together. As soon as one truck was full, the other one moved in and took over with maybe just a couple minutes in between. That small amount of sewage that went down the street, we had Vector trucks collecting it before it went into the storm drain at that point. We estimate about 100,000 gallons that went down into the creek. The good news is nothing made it to the Vallecitos Lagoon, which would be an environmentally sensitive area, and certainly because of that, nothing went into the ocean. We made all of our phone calls immediately to California Office of Emergency Services, County Environmental Health, Fish and Wildlife. All of those contacts were made by Don McDougal, our plant supervisor. Eric Garcia, our collection supervisor, was out there with his staff. They went downstream to get out in front of it, and we were actually able to pump out about 30,000 plus gallons out of an area where it kind of collected. And he met with County Environmental Health. They walked the area. We are going to be doing some sampling. We're putting up some signs. But at this point, County Environmental Health does not feel we did any environmental damage. They're not even going to post it on their website. So that's the good news. It'd be probably a little expensive recoupment costs, I'm sure, City of Carlsbad and City of Vista, as usual. You know, we always try to collect our costs, but City of Carlsbad had at least 2 of their Vectors. Quite a bit of their staff was on site helping out, as well as City of Vista. It was very well organized. Everybody worked well together, and that's one of the reasons I really like working in North County. I'm not sure about South County, but the North County agencies, when you have an emergency like this, everybody comes together. You make a phone call, and they're there immediately.
A couple of questions relative to what went down the creek and the capture. The creek is dry, obviously, and you captured and left. Well, the residue that's there when the next rain comes, is that a concern for anybody when that washes through?
It's why the County Environmental Health has us do testing. So right now, we're taking coliform samples, total coliform samples, to test for fecal coliform in the creek, and we continue to do so until they tell us to stop. So ultraviolet light, sun is going to kill a lot of that bacteria. And to be honest, a lot of times those creeks are filthier before we have something like that happen. Most of the time, if it's a storm drain or something like that where the spill goes into, County Environmental Health will have us flush fresh water through and then capture that as well. But there's so much vegetation, it was just dirt where it went into. The place where we captured actually was a concrete area, so we were able to pull that water out of there. But everywhere else, it was pretty much soaking into the ground, and Environmental Health didn't seem to have too much concerns.
I'm familiar with an area, well, familiar distant past, an area that they call Three Falls.
No, it made it down as far as El Fuerte, so it didn't make it to.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it stopped right at Poinsettia and El Fuerte, just on the other side of El Fuerte. There's a big concrete structure there, and it just made it to that spot right there. So.
It's actually a big desilting basin, so it's not actually a creek.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the one spot we could get to. Everywhere else, there's so much overgrowth, there's no way we could get a truck in there.
Yeah.
Another reason why Environmental Health. So the official end of cleanup was at 3:45, right before we made it into here. Crews were just packing up their equipment. City of Carlsbad Police Department was great. They were blocking off traffic on Melrose, and then when we said, hey, we need to get over to El Fuerte and stop traffic going southbound, on El Fuerte. City of Carlsbad PD helped out. City of Carlsbad had traffic control along with our traffic control set up. We needed to block that lane because we were actually able to pump out of the desilting basin right into the City of Carlsbad sewer. So that's why we had to block those lanes to get into their manholes. So instead of us having to use pumper trucks, and it would have taken a lot longer, we were able to set up a large pump and pull straight out of that desilting basin and get out of there a lot faster.
Director Martin?
Congratulations on everything that happened after the event. It sounds like you did a yeoman's job. But let's move before the event. Obviously, they cut into a pipe they were supposed to cut into. As far as they were told or knew from us, it was a dry pipe.
Yes, we knew there'd be potential sewer going through there, but at much lower flows where they could capture it if need be inside the trench, but nothing at the amounts that were.
100,000 gallons or 50,000?
Well, it was about 1,000 to 1,500 gallons per minute that was coming out. So over a 2-hour period of spilling, it was about 100,000 gallons.
Wouldn't that be more than a burp?
Well, it would stop, and then it would start again, it would stop, and it would start again. So that's why I say it was burping. It was like it was creating a vacuum in the pipe, the siphon was, and then burping again. But this isn't part of the siphon, it's part of the gravity. So we think the siphon actually was what was affected.
Who bears responsibility?
Oh, we will. Vallecitos.
Us.
Yes. It was not the contractor's fault. Contractor actually performed very well. In fact, their guys got into the hole before it was what I would call clean by
Yeah,
any means.
we haven't really determined it's all our fault. There's a combination of things, when they were scheduled to do it, when they actually did it, because the flows vary through the day. So we've got a lot of things to check in. But part of it could be on us, part of it could be on them.
I'd be interested in following up to see whose fault it was. I'm a firm believer in it's somebody's fault. And whose is it and why? So it doesn't happen again.
We don't know.
That's the largest spill you've had in how long?
Long time.
So it's pretty
Oh, it was
eventful.
definitely a significant spill, yes. Absolutely. And another thing that the city of Carlsbad was able to do, and I mentioned to James that I was by, and I don't know, Dennis might have been the engineer that put this in, with that 12-inch connection to Poinsettia lift station the city of Carlsbad has. It's never been used to my knowledge, and it relieves pressure off of that line. And actually, once we were able to expose that valve and open it up, the city of Carlsbad started pumping out of our line, out of our outfall, and that lowered the hydraulic grade line to where we were able to dry the pipe up. Contractor finished cutting the section out and installing the T that was supposed to go in and all that. So that
Great
worked
job
very
after
well.
the event. Great job.
Director Hernandez?
Yeah, obviously, without saying, you guys did a magnificent job. The cost of the event, do we have insurance to cover this kind of a program, or is this out of our bottom line?
This will come out of our pocket, whatever sheriff, we have any responsibility for it. The insurance we have usually covers something out of our control or out of our purview of what we do. If we do something ourselves and make a mistake, the insurance is gonna look at you like dummy.
Well, but I mean,
But
you've got
you've
third
got
party
different- you got different
coverage.
types.
If somebody
Yeah,
is
there's different
damaged
types.
because of this, we
Yeah.
certainly have insurance for that.
Right, if there's,
But the
yeah, there's
actual
third
cost
party,
to
but the
fix it,
actual
the
cost is
cleanup.
us.
But then, Ed, I heard you say something about Carlsbad and Vista. I mean, obviously, they had people there.
Yeah, when you asked whose fault it was, I thought you meant the city of Carlsbad had something to do with it. No, I mean, the city of Carlsbad and Vista, they were certainly helping us. And
They
they'll-
may or may not charge us,
Ah,
because we're all members of Encina.
yes.
Years ago, you may recall when Jerome came in and did a presentation 6 months ago, talked to you guys about all the different things that we belong to. One of them is a informal agreement we have amongst us, well, 6 partners, but 5 of us. Informal agreement we have amongst us. If we have people available and services available, we send it. Whether or not they choose to bill us is an informal thing. You recall when the water main blew out on San Marcos Boulevard about 7 or 8 years ago? Going down the hill where it took out half that road, going down there. Because we're at this end of the water main, you can't get east on Palomar Park Road at 4 o'clock. So
Right.
Carlsbad couldn't really even get there, so we responded, we did almost all of it. Some of it we billed them for, the rest we didn't. It's just whatever's reasonable.
All right, very good, thank you.
When we ordered lunch for our staff, we made sure we got enough for theirs too, so all
Great.
that's paid. They got pizza.
Hey, Ed, were any of the local residences, or I don't think there's any businesses in that area, but were anybody impacted in any way?
The road closure probably was the largest impact, southbound Melrose at Poinsettia. The biggest concern we had immediately was there's Carrillo Elementary right there.
Yes.
So before I even made it out there, staff confirmed that none of the sewage was going into the school, it was actually going down the storm drain system and away from the school. We did immediately contact the school, let them know what was going on, and that we were closing that section of Melrose, and we were able to open the street back up. I want to say it was 2:25, right when school was getting out. In fact, we drove past to go to Alforte. We drove past the entrance of school, and there's a long line of cars going in, but none were coming out yet. So we were really rushing, trying to get the cleanup. We actually completed the cleanup of the street before they were completely done bolting up the T, so we could get that lane open, and so we had minimal impact to the school at that point.
My daughter goes to Korea, and once you and the city of Carlsbad were communicating with them, the district was actually putting out via their text messaging system to all the parents kind of updates, so I appreciate that. Were there any odors or anything that would have made it any discomfort for the kids?
No, and in fact, you had to be right on site before you smelled anything. I was walking right past where it was flowing, and then you pick up an odor, but there was nothing that you pick up down in school.
Well, thank you. Thanks for your efforts.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, was there any questions down here?
No, I
Okay.
good job.
Again, just wanted to thank City of Carlsbad, City of Vista, and
Yeah, we'll
obviously
send
the
them a-
operations staff did a fantastic job, so.
Yeah, we'll follow up with the letter then, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott?
I just wanted to mention, give you a bit of a heads up on a legal issue that I think you're gonna see probably more and more of next year. I know you're probably pretty tired of hearing about the drought, and you're, pretty much being lectured to about that all the time. But it is increasing concerns. We've always had a healthy tension between the development community and those that want to maintain the status quo. But with the drought, the concerns have increased more and more, and I think that the district's legal responsibility to reasonably provide water service, for example, is going to be a topic that I think you're going to see more and more, you're going to be exposed more and more to. So I kind of want to just give you a heads up on that. And the district, as you know, is not a land use planning body, and like the city or the county. And we don't approve development projects or direct growth. But because we provide this very precious water service, it's becoming, both on a state level and a local level, a big deal. So I think you're going to kind of be hearing more and more about this and be exposed more and more of this. And Dennis, I'm sure, will keep you up on it. But it'll be something I think next year you're going to see more controversy. And I would like to just sort of give you a heads up on that issue.
Director Martin?
Yeah, a quick question, Scott. Just want to see if this has changed or not. My understanding is when a developer comes to us and says, we need X amount of water, can you give us a letter? We go to San Diego County Water Authority and say, can we serve them with water? They go to wherever they go to, but there's a chain of command we're not the head of.
That's
Would that be
correct.
correct?
Absolutely.
So San Diego County Water Authority, in order for us to say no, they have to tell us no. The
Yes.
Met has to tell them no.
Yes.
So we're at the bottom of that food chain.
We are at the bottom of the food chain, but we're on the front lines
Yes, now
of the
we are.
issue. Okay, in the sense that, as a retail supplier, this is where the rubber meets the road. As far as the arguments about it, and there's been, in the last few years, more and more state laws have been passed that we've got to take these kinds of, the water ability and stuff into consideration. So you're absolutely right, and nothing has changed per se, but I want to tell you these issues, because of the continuing drought, I just want to give you a heads up, and want you to be mindful of it, so that when the issues come in and come before you, you're informed and you understand what the legal issues are. But yes, our duty, we have a reasonable duty. Till the water authority tells us that we can't provide service, we continue to provide service and look and analyze and evaluate this. But having said that, the world is moving a little bit, and we're getting pressures from other sides, particularly if this drought persists and we don't get any, and to the extent we start to reach, into further stages, then it can, can become an issue. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. And the other thing is I'm really concerned putting Jim and Hal together on the end there, that the dynamics could get stirred up. I mean.
What did I do? I have no idea. One of my questions at the end of the question is to be, how does staff figure out the dance?
Yeah.
That we have to do every year?
That was me.
That guy.
Because it makes no sense to me. But it must be something back in the 30s they decided on, and we can't change it.
No,
All
you
right.
can speak to your guy to your left. He made the choice.
I put everybody's name in a hat and went.
Oh, okay, so you did.
I had nothing to do with that.
Prior to this, it was staff though, wasn't
No,
it?
had nothing to do with this.
Oh, I thought it was staff.
The board does what the board
Well, I
wants
just
to do.
wanted to raise it, because
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that,
And just to finish that, thank you very much for clarifying. But the Water Authority, San Diego County, they're not the ultimate authority either. Met is.
That's correct.
Would that be correct?
That is. Both, we depend on both of them.
yeah, it's both. One of the things that we are hearing starting to come out is there's a push legislatively to tie the general plans and the specific plans of cities that have land use control to an actual additional water studies and definitive allocations of water, is what they're looking to do. Right now, we don't have to do, and you're gonna have one in January come to you, we don't have to do the water supply assessments for 500 units and bigger, give or take. And then we have to do the supply. We don't have to do it for smaller ones. There's a push now to making an allocation at the city and the county planning level for each and every land use type, period. And then it will define the amount of water that you get to use to assign to them. So it's starting to get commingled down into the local level.
Well, I understand, but I don't even think this governor and this legislature is stupid enough to kill growth.
Well, they don't want to kill the economy. That's why they didn't touch the growth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
But to
Hopefully they're not.
Mr. Scott's point, though, I don't understand all the legal issues around this, but we are on the front lines as the retailer, and that's why I think it's more important than ever that we do kind of get out in front of this, a bit more proactive. If you may recall, I suggested that we have a workshop with the development community, with the public, and with everybody here, so we can get into a public forum and have that discussion and start having that kind of dialogue. And I think the more that we are proactively communicating this, that maybe we can kind of ease some of that tension that you mentioned in the beginning, so.
And I think you're gonna see that, and it's gonna come, and you're gonna hear it, and it's just the evolution of what's going. And I just wanted to simply give you, it's quiet tonight, I wanna give you a heads up, and just let you know, be prepared.
Any other comments on council's presentation? Okay, thanks. Director Evans, got anything for us?
Just a wee bit. The San Diego County Water Authority did not have a meeting actually in November, and our next meeting is this Thursday, where we'll combine the two. And most of the talk, I'm sure, is going to be about what Dennis has already told us about what's going on up in the state. I know we'll be having presentations on some of their thoughts on the Bay Delta and the Colorado River and the Salton Sea. In legal, Conservation and Outreach Committee, they have, there's nothing happening, but it'll all start up again very quickly, January 4th, and they have a huge number of bills, and some have been bills that were turned into two-year bills and have to be taken care of before the end of January. But I just saw these 6 I thought was interesting that they're looking at supporting or not supporting, which is what we do, we support. So one of them they are hoping to co-sponsor is AB 33 by Quirk to help create an improved path forward for large-scale energy projects, including hydropower pump storage. And that's going to relate to the pump storage at San Vincent. And that's important because right now it's not decided on how we get energy credit or not and how it will work for us. But they also are deferring, I thought it was interesting, there's one out to balance the achievement of mandated water use reductions through application of a drought sustainable water supply effect and offset. That sounds like something we'd be interested in, doesn't it? But they want to monitor it until the State Water Control Board has a chance to say what they're thinking, and then if it's necessary, we would co-sponsor that bill to give us our credit. And there also, another one on on declaring some of the actions, implementations of actions by the executive order. We're also gonna defer on that. So I thought it was interesting, they're waiting, and I'm hoping it won't happen in February. We can get that till we get through the end of the rainy season. And then the others are, at this point, no, but most of them are just watching. So that's kind of it. I think it's all gonna hit in January. So our catch-up meeting.
Everybody's kind of taking a break right now.
No, they are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Director Ellithorpe, you got anything from your committee at Encina?
Yeah, but we had a Policy and Finance Committee on Tuesday, December 1st. We considered 3 items, which were establishing Board of Directors meeting dates for 2016. We looked at a revised integrated travel and expense reimbursement policy, and we reviewed the draft fiscal year 2015 comprehensive annual financial report.
How about you, Director Hernandez?
Excuse me. Our meeting is tomorrow morning, so I suspect we'll hear some of this thing.
Super. Any director reports on travel, conferences, or seminars? I know we were over out of town last week, right?
Oh, yes.
Want to start, Director Hernandez, and we'll work our way this way?
Okay, well, then we had some exciting ones. One of the most exciting was the sexual harassment 3-hour seminar that was mandatory every 2 years, and I mentioned at the lunch table the other day that now we have to ask directly.
We need to get a legal opinion on that.
Yes, from the seminar, and I brought it up because it did not sound like a reasonable, plausible position. As a board member, I am supposed to ask, do we have any sexual harassment issues taking place in our workplace? And not, and under that, of course, there is age discrimination, race, gender, there's at least a dozen subcategories. Because if something comes up and a lawsuit is filed and they bring it against Jim Hernandez, and I go, well, I didn't know anything. They say, I'm sorry, sir, you needed to know. And I said, well, how am I supposed to know? And they said, well, you're supposed to ask. So we did this back and forth role play because it seemed obscene. And, that was the big item that came out of there, that as board members, we're responsible, so we need to inquire and not wait for information coming back to us, because it might not happen, or might quite, that got a little confusing.
You know, that's I don't know that, I mean, you know, that's a little complicated. I don't wanna give you the lawyer-like answer, but some things is better off that you don't know and get involved in, okay? But I want to assure you that if there was anything like that, we would make sure that the board was informed and advised of it, okay? But the problem with what that suggests is that somebody's saying, well, I want to know about it, and then you're involving yourself in the details of it, and then pretty soon you could potentially be a witness. You could, I mean, there's a whole myriad of things that, as the final authority for the board, you know, for the district, that's your proper role. And there may be things that you have to make decisions on with regards to these types of claims and things like that. But they have to go through the proper channels. And we would, you know, the first thing we do in those kinds of things is to conduct an investigation. And those investigations many times are confidential. And you can't, you know, it's not something that you could come to it's appropriate to go ahead and share those things. So there's a whole bunch of issues that complicate the situation, and I can appreciate the idea that, hey, I'm a director, I want to know what's going on around here, but these things, we have to handle them pretty delicately because of the confidentiality issues and the people, and to make sure the investigations are conducted appropriately.
Privately.
Yeah, so that we don't have a.
But is there a current policy in place that dictates that the board would be notified?
Well, you have to, and again, I don't know if you kept the training that you got, the material, I'd like to see what that person was referring to, because what you just said is counter to every practice there is known to the separation of the board from staff. And again, that's why I'm the one in between the board and staff, to keep both sides separate because of that liability. You have that investigation policy and the confidentiality policy that you just adopted a while back, which puts everything, but that's from a standpoint of issues associated with employees and everything else. I would have to defer to, again, to Jeff and Rondi on this to go back and get it, but I mentioned that to Rondi, Jim, after that, and it was just like, huh?
Yeah.
Because it's not floating out there beyond anybody with what you heard at that seminar.
Director Elkhart?
Yeah, I just took the online training that staff supervisors take here, and there's no way, shape, or form does it
Yeah, that's, when you said
imply
that, I
that
was
you
like,
have to explicitly ask if there's anything going on. I saw nothing in the online training that would support the.
Yeah, as I say, I did the role play because I didn't believe it either, and he was pretty adamant. So, anyway, that was the one that was kind of interesting. And the second one that I attended was the landscape, the new state landscape ordinances have come down, and two items that caught my attention. One was, and I can't recall whether or not mandatory second meters for landscaping. Is that something that we have employed? Because, I mean, in all my years, even though it's been discussed as an alternative, we design all our projects so that the flows and the timing of landscaping is after hours, so we do not need to spend $15,000, $18,000, $20,000 for a second meter.
it is starting to trend that way. There's always been a provision in the water code component that would allow us to require and mandate for commercial and other certain types. Single-family home and that kind of that nature, no, because the demands are so low, it just doesn't justify it.
Right.
Even the fact that it just gets so low in the quantity, we can't even meter it
Yes.
sometimes. I would say just about every commercial and project other than single-family home going in now is putting in an irrigation dedicated meter and a domestic meter. And they're doing that so that they can get the different tiers. When there's a tier structure on the rates, that they don't get banged on the tiers for all the water going through one meter. So if you've got a business and all your irrigation goes off that meter, it's gonna take your tiers into the higher tiers right away versus if you have multiple meters, your demand stay down in less tiers. It is trending towards that. Whether or not they're gonna mandate it, I didn't think that was part of the rules that were coming down, but we still got.
That was not
Yeah.
clear as to whether it was a mandate or if it was.
Yeah, we still gotta work through
an
that with
option.
this, we've still gotta work through that with the city, because again, it's the funny thing is the state mandated, but they're, for the water consumption and everything that has to be monitored with the policy, they're putting it under the city's jurisdiction.
And that was the other thing that just shocked me. There's a water calculation sheet. And you fill it out, and it tells you how much water you're going to be using, and you cannot use more than that allocation. And you, as an applicant for a building permit, which requires a landscaping plan, you are supposed to receive that sheet. I've not seen a sheet like that until this seminar. And I don't know if our city is.
We do it, and we work with the city, and this was probably 7 or 8 years ago when the first rules came down. So we met with the city, because our concern was they might have a policy that says we're going to let you use this much water per gallon per day per acre. And we're over here with the master plan saying, no, this is all you get per gallons per day per acre. So we have that form. So every person that comes in and does development with us, they have a form that they fill out, their acreage, how many stations, how many gallons per minute. That's what we calculate to see what size meter they get and how much allocation they get. We already do that.
But the way these gentlemen were talking, the city is supposed to supply that.
They may take it from us and give it to them.
Okay.
It could very well be.
All right.
We already do that, but no, there's some new rules coming, and we have to sit down with the city and
And
figure it out.
then the last one was the one we had been talking about, the atmospheric rivers. And I only bring it up because the young gentleman up there had a great analogy that he didn't share until you asked him. But, so here we are, Mother Nature is sitting out there with a water bottle. She squirts it at us. It either is too cold, and when she squirts it snows, or when it's normal, she squirts and it rains. She has 2 children, El Nino and El Nina. Sometimes they show up. and they bring a basket of water balloons. They're rambunctious kids, sometimes they don't do anything, sometimes they lob a small one at us and push. If they lob 2 big ones at us, 2 big events in an El Nino or an El Nino period, we've got more dang water
Yeah, we
than
flood.
we need. And I was shocked that just 2 major events triggers the whole thing.
Well, remember when the guy did the presentation from NOAA at the breakfast, California gets all of its water in 4 to 5 major events during the year. The 95th percentile is when we get all of that water.
Yeah.
The rest of the year, it's just, it keeps the ground wet and we get our cars washed. And
Yeah.
But
So-
that's exactly what it is.
So that's the analogy, and I finally got it pretty clear. So those were the ones that I brought.
Okay, thanks. Director Martin?
Yeah, I went up early, and I didn't bring my notes, but I can go. I went up early on Monday for the GPIA, which is always very interesting. And on Tuesday, did a seminar on ergonomics, which I thought was very, very interesting, and things you could do to make yourself feel better in about 3 minutes, and they didn't during the duration. It was very good.
Did you feel better?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And Tom's gonna.
Give you a demonstration?
Yeah, he's gonna be having a training session on it. Yeah, get your chakras in line, and, the whole thing. Another thing I thought was interesting and germane to the earlier conversation is, like Coachella Valley just started curtailing their water on Mondays and Thursdays, which the interesting part is they're gonna be in line behind San Diego and in front of a few other people, whining to the state how we're being unfair, because they have a huge aquifer. They have a huge aquifer.
Yeah.
They don't have to save anything.
Yeah.
But yet they're being forced to do it. So poor San Diego's not in the boat by itself.
Oh, no, Orange
It's
County's in the same
across the
boat.
board.
Yeah.
And if we just all suck it up, we don't have to worry about it. And we all prove that we can. We did it in the summertime. So, the rest of it was very good, a lot of classes, and I can continue to report at the next meeting, because like I said, I didn't bring all my notes in my book with me.
Thank you.
So that was great.
Director Althart?
Yeah, I attended an energy committee program on modernization of the electrical grid, very interesting. A statewide issues forum on financing water projects, another forum on affordable, safe drinking water for disadvantaged communities, a human resources program on avoiding the brain drain, capturing information before retirement. That was pretty good. That's kind of near and dear to my heart, since I'm recently retired. So. And then a water trends program on the water storage investment program update, and that's the storage part of the water bond that was passed last year. And I also attended the Aqua Region 10 business meeting. That's the first time I've ever attended a region function. I found that very interesting.
Well, I was there also. I was saying, Jim, pass me the book and I'll tell you all the ones I went to. But I was at the landscape when you were talking about, and I found it very interesting, that he did say it was mandatory, the sub-meters. And I was wondering at that time if it was the city or an agency, like a municipal agency, was dictating it and not the state.
It's the
Because they
state.
didn't really clarify that. And when I saw that water allocation sheet, it was like, oh my gosh, who wants to do that? And then secondly, well, he even implied it wasn't being done, because they'd never seen one as well. I agree with how the ergonomics thing at the JPIA was very interesting, and it was, the thing I enjoy so much about what they do is they really work at helping us help ourselves to not have claims. And they just have very interesting programs, and this one even just how people get chairs, and one chair doesn't sit all, and then someone sits in a chair and then they move around, but they don't change the chairs, and this little slight thing does this amazing thing, and we're all, these big claims. I also noticed that we were in 2 of the 4 or 3 of the, is it 4 categories? Property, liability, something.
3.
There's 3. We were in
Workers'
2,
comp,
and we
workers'
only
comp,
had
or like that.
one we hadn't hit this year.
Workman's comp.
Workers' comp, yes, it was the workers' comp. But they do a wonderful job, and it's interesting, they work so hard when they already have a majority of the agencies with them, that they really do a fabulous job with that. The Region 10 was excellent. I thought a lot of talking went on in that one. A lot of information was put out, more than the one before. And I think I'll stop there, and if I think I need, I'll write the rest because I didn't bring the book. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'll tell you something kind of amusing and funny. The breakfast, I went to the breakfast, the last breakfast, and then I got a call from Greg, my dog, who's quite old, was having problems, and he was calling the vet, and I was like, oh, he's got, and I thought it might be the end of my puppy. So I left the meeting. And as I got home, I got a text that said, I had been called to win some big bucks, but I couldn't get it because I wasn't there.
Oh.
So my dog cost me $250, right, Tom, or something like that I wasn't there to get, and $52 at the vet. So those breakfasts are worth staying for sometimes, and sometimes not having a pet is useful too. But he's fine, he's doing good. He just got into something he shouldn't have, you think, but.
Right after they called your name, I said, draw again, she's not here, draw again.
I know, I bet
I'm
they
sure
were so
you did.
quick. Just amazing.
Oh,
Like I said, I never usually win.
if I could add one thing to the JPIA, which I thought was interesting, in one of their town hall meeting, the question came up about, one of the people brought up, how come they don't get as many? I think we only had 105 voting people there from the JPIA, and there's 370 members, and 450 that belong to. And I thought it interesting, because I talked to some people after, I said, well, here's one of your problems, is unless you're retired, which the demographic is changing as we look at our
Big
board.
time.
Unless you're retired, you can't take off during the week. You got family, you got work, you got job, you got, so I think it's time the JPA and Aqua start thinking about, staff, you're gonna have to work on weekends and take comp time. Their staff, our staff already knows that, but their staff. I mean, they need to start pushing these things so that more people that may be working in the prime of their life are on water boards and are being elected. And I just think it's something we're gonna see. I think we only have 3 in San Diego County so far, but it's a start. So those young people.
Yeah, thanks, Hal, I appreciate that. And then I was there as well, and not to repeat what was already said, I went to one that wasn't mentioned, that was a water building strategies presentation. I think some of our staff was there and a few of the other board members. I went there thinking that they were gonna talk about like tiers and stuff like that. They were actually talking about, building systems, and but it actually was not all for naught, because they had a quite comprehensive review of kind of a refresher on RFP, request for proposal process, and some of the best practices surrounding that. So that was actually really good. That can be put to use to not only for water districts, but for anytime you need to look for vendors for something. And then there was I also went to the Proposition 1 update on essentially what they're gonna be, how they're kind of implementing Prop 1 and deciding who gets what as far as the funding and stuff. And just kind of a funny thing that was that came up during that presentation. There was a lady, and I won't name who she was, that was presenting, but she was with the California Water Commission, and she was one of the leaders that was in charge of that implementation process. And as she was talking about during her presentation some of the misconceptions about people that are applying for those funds, that they're applying for the funds for supply-related matters, and as we know that Prop 1 was had really nothing to do with supply. And she was standing up there and she's like, I just don't understand why there's confusion around this. She was blown away. So me being me in the audience, I grabbed my phone and Googled California Proposition 1, campaign materials, and hit enter, and one after another was their campaign materials saying that this was going to secure our supply. And so, it was just, it's just interesting when you talk about politics and campaigning and what was done to get that proposition so overwhelmingly passed. But
And they're looking at adding $6 billion to proposition in November.
Really?
Hopefully, maybe the voters with
Another
some of the
six-
other things that are going on.
Another
with
$6 billion.
Oh, neat, yeah, well, what they say, about $1 billion here and $1 billion there. But
This
it's
starts to add up.
Yep, so I just thought that was interesting because,
Well, that's part of the problem, is there are no rules yet on what you can apply for and what they qualify to what you get. And they say, so if you have a shovel-ready project, they come to the front of the line, but you don't know what it is you're applying for yet, so.
Yeah.
But remember, we're still passing out Prop 50 money from
Right. Yeah.
I was in high school.
That's what one of our former board members was complaining about. There's been 3 major propositions. We haven't built
We
anything
haven't even
yet.
spent it all yet.
And so, we'll see.
Don't get me started. Okay, so that concludes our reports. Everybody received the WEF water tours for 2016 from Diane. Thank you for sending that. So if you are interested in any of those, please reach out to her. Any director comments or future agenda items? And I'll start on this side. Director Evans, if you have any. If not, then we'll just keep moving.
I just want to wish everyone a very happy holiday and thank you for a great year.
I'll second that.
Director Martin.
I'll third that, but I have a question of staff. My understanding, and we had 2 workshops here on desal, and in the 2 workshops, in the first workshop, there was a slide, an active slide showing where the water was gonna go. And I had mentioned to Chris and a few of the staff members that I don't think that's really good, confuses people, because nobody in San Alejo was getting any of this desal water. And one of the questions from the audience was, I live in San Alejo, so why am I paying for desal? Like, well, it's probably not the best idea to have that. The second one, we still use the same slide showing where the desal water is being distributed and in what quantities at what time of year, which from an engineering perspective, if we had a room full of engineers, might have been interesting. To me, it was interesting as a board member, but to the general public, they're going, how does it affect me? Now my understanding is that we already started pumping desal water into our system, and it's all going to San Alejo.
I don't know who you heard that from. There is no desal water coming in.
There is none.
No.
Okay.
When do we expect some?
End of the month.
End of the month. Well, then clarify this. Someone has told me that they're glad we're blending it because it's just too darn good before it's blended. And the taste is so much better than the water we're getting from the Metropolitan or whoever.
You guys have sources I don't have.
No, I just.
The water's not coming into the district right now,
No.
so whoever you heard that from, Director Martin, that's incorrect. Now, we have the pump station that we've gone through the final testing to take water from Alevinhain.
Right.
That will be going to San Leo. We've gone through the testing and we're going through that right now.
Okay.
Yes, but that water is the same water that gets anywhere to the county. It just gets treated by Alevinhain instead of getting treated by Twin Oaks. No different. So
And
we,
the Alevinhain water is coming from their dam, which comes from?
the same pipe that comes from Twin Oaks.
Same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Now, again, the benefit there is that in an emergency, it comes from the dam, and we can bring it in from San Vicente back up and then into us that way. But no, desal has not come into the district. The connection's not even turned on or completed. So who's hearing that? Now, you're gonna get the taste test that the city of Carlsbad and the Water Authority did, when they did a comparison of their water versus the imported water and everything else, there was not an appreciable difference between the panels that tasted the water. So who you're hearing that from, I don't know. But the TDS is gonna be probably in the 250, 300 range, which right now we're getting probably 575, 600 range, because it's harder.
650.
Yeah.
Okay, it'd be harder, 650, because it's all Colorado River water, which is the problem we're having with the TDS at Meadowlark, because it's getting too high. You might feel the difference in the water when you're showering, because the soap washes off
Right.
better.
Mhm.
I don't think it's gonna be sweet water versus brackish water.
Yeah.
I just don't perceive it.
Do you have any idea that our dedication, if we're gonna get a taste?
Well, I'm sure they will.
Oh, good.
I'm sure they will.
All right.
Absolutely. Did you taste it when they did the demo project?
No.
Okay.
At Pure in San Diego?
No. Not Metropolitan. Poseidon's had a demonstration thing going over there for 9 years.
Yeah.
So if you ever did one of the old tours of the site back then, but yeah, you just walk over and take a drink of it.
Huh.
Tastes like good, clean, fresh water.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you're gonna be seeing something that it's so great that people on this side of the street are gonna be saying, oh my God, we gotta move to the other side of the street. I don't perceive that.
I had a couple questions. We were trying to put together a date in December.
That was
for
my
the-
next thing,
the
I was just gonna
outreach
talk to you, yeah.
presentation.
Historically, we have not done a second board meeting in December because of it. We got most of your dates that we could meet, and of course, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
as far as a common date. An alternative would be is just to do it on the 16th. Which would be.
A workshop? Is
Yeah,
that-
workshop, yeah. That would be the only item on the agenda.
Except for some consent questions.
And because it is the only item, it would also be appreciated if the board would consider moving it during the day.
And would it be a board meeting or a workshop or?
It's just a board meeting with an item on it for discussion. Whether we call it a workshop or a board meeting, it doesn't matter.
Is there really a detriment to moving to January and picking up an extra meeting then?
You're already gonna get an extra meeting in January for the master plan workshop.
Then we'll have two.
We,
Mr. President?
Go ahead, because we're probably saying the same thing.
Probably, in as much as, if we call it a workshop as opposed to a board meeting, do we have less formality that we can employ? Asking the attorney there.
Sure.
Then I wouldn't mind doing it on the 16th.
Okay.
I happen to be my birthday, so I'm gonna be available. You know, the present's no larger than $100,000.
and a bread basket.
Bring in some cake.
We could, you know, but the other, we could just call it the committee of the whole, which is what we were doing for those kind of things before.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
it's
that's
gonna
fine.
be a board meeting, so.
Well,
It is a board meeting.
Here's my only concern, is if we call it, I think, in my mind, if it's a board meeting, it's too formal for that interaction back and forth, and I think that's really what I'm hoping comes out
Sure.
of whatever we do in a workshop, would
That's-
be
that's
that
the
we
intent.
get a more fluid conversation without having to, you know,
Yeah, we can just call it committee of the whole, and it's basically a board, it's a special committee of the full board, talking at the same time. That's what we used to do. Yeah, that's fine.
We still have it here, we have to move the smoky back room,
We can have it wherever you'd like to have it.
hopefully.
And then part two of that, I know that it was asked about moving it to an earlier time. I could probably do an hour earlier, but I couldn't do too much.
An hour
more than
early
that.
would be helpful. That would be
I mean,
appreciated.
I'm just speaking for myself, because I'm one of those folks that director.
or we could do it on a weekend.
I know the board likes to
I
have the
am-
ability
I am
for the
available
public,
every
and again,
Saturday.
this is an
Director
item for the
Barno
board
and I will
to
be
use.
both dead before this happens, I can tell you that.
Yeah, you're not setting policy or guiding anything that the board does as far as the public or
Does the
rates or
16 work
costs.
for everybody?
This- If the
3 on the
16 works, we'll
16th?
just have it at the 16th.
3 o'clock on the 16th?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Just as a curious question though, what's the difference? I happen to be a proponent, well, in this particular case, we know it's probably mostly developers that would attend this.
No, this
This
is
is the
the
catch
outreach.
workshop. This is the outreach thing. This has nothing to do with the
Oh, this is
master
the
plan.
outreach.
This is the
Oh,
outreach
I-
thing.
I thought we were doing the,
No, the board asked me to do that in the end of January, because we already had it proposed. We'll be looking the week of the 25th for that, January 25th. This is to go over the cats. That's why I say this isn't a policy issue or
Oh,
anything else.
you know, see,
will
I-
cats be
Yeah,
here?
they're here. They can be on the 16th.
Okay, now, see, that was, I made the same
Sorry.
mistake.
Yeah,
I thought this was the,
No, Diane's been working with you guys to get dates that you guys can meet.
yeah.
We got most of them from most of you, but none of them jive. So
Yes.
the alternative is, instead of, we normally wouldn't have a second board meeting, but
Just do
you
this
probably already have
presentation.
that on your calendar.
Okay.
So why don't we just do it for the cats thing there? The
All right.
master plan workshop was requested in January, early February. We're proposing from staff standpoint to do it the first week of February. We've talked to the consultant, they can do it the week of the 25th. So we'll be talking to you
Of
guys.
January?
Yes,
That's for the master.
That's
plan,
for the master plan.
Progress report and.
progress report, status,
workshop.
all that good stuff.
And to Director Hernandez's point, both of those, the CAT's presentation on outreach and the master plan workshop, I do agree with him that a workshop will be a much better venue where we can have that give and take and
Sure.
have that discussion. Also, just like we were provided well in advance, the CAT's presentations, I'm sure my colleagues are doing the same thing. We're reviewing it, we're taking notes, we're gonna come to the meeting, it's gonna be much more productive. I think we should do the same thing, as I had indicated earlier, for the master plan workshop, not only for the board, but also for the public.
Sure.
Any other comments?
Yeah. One comment, and it's for the good of the board. I know our staff has gone crazy over this past year. When they're trying to set a new date for something. should I recommend that we do this at our board meetings where all five of us are present in the future and save staff a lot of hassle trying to tie us down?
We used to try that, Director Martin, and the board got tired of sitting up here trying to pick a date. They felt they looked kind of silly doing it. They directed us, at that point, to do it through email and paper. If you want to do it here, that's fine.
Waste their time.
Well, we can do it here if you want, that's fine
So
with me.
January, you're saying the week of the 24th. So the Wednesday would be the 27th?
Hold on, let me get them. Oh, we can do it, let me get to that one. You guys have a regular board meeting on the 20th. We go to CASA, so some of you are gonna probably be leaving
Yeah,
that
we'll
night.
be there, yeah.
Yeah, so some of you will be probably leaving that night after the board meeting going up, depending on if you go or not.
Right.
So that'll be a meeting that you guys may want to start earlier or move a day earlier. The following week is the 25th.
Right.
The week of the 25th, the consultant is available any day that week to have the workshop.
I would recommend we do it the 27th, but that's just a recommendation from me.
The 27th does work for me too.
Works for me.
Let's go for the 27th.
Any concerns? Okay.
Is that the date?
I don't know, did we hear all five?
Sounds like it.
Yes, I think you
At the
did.
4 o'clock hour?
It's up to you, but I'll tell you, you have people that,
Oh,
you're gonna have the developers, you're gonna have people from the community. I gotta tell you, a lot of them prefer to do it during their workday, because that's what they
yeah,
do.
yeah.
That's up to you.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And I don't know how that works in
trying
your
to-
schedule.
I can do it, but what I'm concerned about is, we are doing this for the development community and for our sake, but we're also doing it just as much for the public's sake, and I don't wanna leave them out either, and they
Right.
work, right? So, I think if the stakeholders, are as interested as I believe they are interested in this, that they'll come at 4 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, I believe you're right.
And that way we don't, preclude the public from coming, because I think it's just as important for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock. Okay. And we'll get that done when it's done.
Okay, any other items? No. Okay, so we'll move to adjourn here, and then we're gonna go into closed
Yeah,
session.
you go and get a motion, you go into closed session.
Can I get a
Move to
motion?
go to closed
Second.
session?
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion
Thank you.
passes